And here we go. Look into your camera, Marcus. And then look into us on Zoom. But they can't see that, so just look into your camera. And say,
Unless the cameras fail and they see us on Zoom.
just
My name is Marcus, and pride makes me glide.
My name is Nkara Stevenson, and I want to dance with somebody. That was a Whitney Houston reference. And this is
A couple of
Kooky kids.
kids.
The same squash bottle full of water, everybody.
Nkara, you're going to love this. And I just did that.
No. Hello, everybody, on this wonderful June Tuesday evening. The hot sun is out.
26 degrees.
26 degrees.
26 degrees.
The rainbow is on. The mics
is
are
on.
out. And we're recording another episode. Just me and Marcus, just the boys. Just the boys today. Only the boys.
Cast.
The original cast, yeah. We're recording a lovely episode because it is what? Pride. And we are what? Proud.
Proud.
To be a queer. Any housekeeping, Marcus?
Any housekeeping? I recently watched because a dog ejaculated into my PS4 and it no longer works. Watched The Last of Us Part 2, and
okay, I was trying to figure out why that detail was relevant, but you couldn't play it on your PS4 because the dog ejaculated. Okay.
Yes, and it shattered my soul into a million pieces in a very, very good way. It's incredible storytelling, and I just suggest, even if you're someone who doesn't play video games, such as myself, I don't play many. I highly suggest that you watch both of those games if you can, because the stories are so beautiful and powerful. There you go. That's my housekeeping. That's been my past week.
I think also hello to anybody listening on Spotify,
Yes.
Wowee, or Apple Music, or we're trying to get it on Google Podcasts, and
We're so sorry about never shutting up about the cameras, which you can't see.
yeah. So sorry about that, but we love you for listening on Spotify because it does cost money to do those things. So we really appreciate it. It's just like a sacrifice we had to make because we know that this is not like a fucking profitable thing, but it's something that we love doing, and it's something that other people love us doing. So why not do it for the people if we're not doing it for ourselves? So we put it out there.
You're so selfless. You're such a hero.
I'm such a Mother Teresa. I was just checking if it's recording. Yeah. So thank you so much. Go listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. That's where we are also posting.
Google Podcast.
We're almost.
Almost there. In case you use Google Podcast.
Deezer. We're going to try and get on Deezer.
Deezer. We're going to get on Deezer.
Yeah.
I used to use Deezer.
Did you actually?
Yeah, I had a free trial. And then I thought it was free. And then it wasn't. And I was so disappointed.
It's really bad, isn't it? Why is it called that?
That was when I first heard The Next Day by David Bowie, which is one of my favourite albums. It's really great.
That's nice.
First heard it on Deezer when I was standing outside of school after a drama lesson, waiting for my mum to pick me up, and she didn't pick me up for an hour and a half because she was saving some dude's life on the side of the road who'd been in a horrible motorcycle accident and nobody else would help. They were just standing there confused, and then she just went in and saved him. And then she was like, "I'm so sorry I'm late." And it's okay. You're
Story
late.
time.
Like,
Wow.
That's the whole story. But
Deezer. That's the
Thank
whole
you for keeping me occupied whilst my...
Oh yeah, so thank you for that. Thank you for all the amazing feedback as always on past episodes, new episodes, and thank you to the questions that you've sent in for this episode. We can't wait to get into them because they're so good. This is a Q&A, also known as a Q&A.
A what?
Q&A.
Did you just abbreviate queer?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to be answering questions sent to us yesterday. Thank you for the quick response.
I know,
Otherwise,
right?
this episode would be quite dull.
Speaking of this episode and why it could be quite dull, I even forgot it was Pride. You know what I mean? I even forgot until like second week in. I said, "Oh shit, yeah, like the Black Trans Lives Matter protest, that was so brilliant." And I was like, "Oh my god, that's just so nice that they would do that randomly." And then I was like, "Oh my god, it's Pride!" Like that's
What a strange time to do some form of like queer protest.
yeah, you know what I mean. Like it's so that's why we decided to do an episode. Like we should have done it anyways, but the reason it's so late just because we've been so just distracted, preoccupied, finding struggling to find ways to celebrate Pride or do what we would usually do for Pride, which is go to a parade, go to events, things like that, you know, gather in our communities, and you can't really do that if you're in lockdown. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about first, what it means to celebrate Pride in 2020 in general. Marcus, what do you think? Or ways you feel like you are celebrating Pride as we have made ourselves aware of it in the last few weeks.
Yeah, the thing about Pride this year, because last year we had a very typical Pride, which was we went to Pride.
The Pride Parade in London, it was fab.
And then we just kind of like binged on queer culture for a bit, which is like what I've been forced to do instead, because you can't exactly go out and celebrate Pride at the minute. One thing that I've been doing at the minute, I've just been wearing my Pride clothing. Make you feel all festive, you know when it's like getting up to Christmas and you start wearing scarves and everything just to make yourself feel in the mood.
Start listening to Christmas music. I've started listening to a lot of queer music.
Fantastic news. Yeah, I've been wearing my Pride trainers every day that I wear to Pride. And that's how I've been getting in the mood. Also, like we said, just consuming some good old-fashioned queer culture.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, that's what I actively decided to do. Other than existing as a queer person already, it's all like I feel like just doing that in itself and doing that just boldly and as bravely as you can is sort of a means of having pride or showing pride. I've been actively like listening to queer music. Haven't watched any queer films yet, but mostly music, and I do watch queer TV shows there. Me and my mum have been having more conversations about about like gender specifically, because she's learning a lot. Like the other day she learned what cis meant, because she thought it meant like heterosexuality, but she didn't know it was to do with gender, because she was listening to Jamila Jamil's podcast.
Yes. And
she was talking to Alok Menov, someone that everyone should follow on Instagram, but we'll link it down in the description. It's this non-binary Instagrammer and activist, poet, artist, fashion icon. They are just so beautiful, and it's absolutely crazy the amount of, like, it even makes me uncomfortable, the disgusting hate they get online, and they still persist and they still live loudly and proudly. And they were talking about their experiences and what their gender means to them and things like that. And my mum was learning a lot, so she was like talking to me about it. So that's been something that's been going on this Pride, which I really, really appreciate. And I encourage people to have these conversations with their parents that perhaps are interested. Their parents are interested but don't really know where to come from or how to get into it or what questions to ask, you know what I mean? But they have an enthusiasm for it because you are part of the community. Like for my parents, they have an enthusiasm for like drag and ball culture, which I also have enthusiasm for, but it's very much dominated by gay men. So I identify it, but I'm aware of this entire other lesbian culture that they aren't aware of. So it's like, yeah, it's sort of finding ways you can relate to each other and find connections in this whole big wide web of queerness.
Fabulous. I'm not as good as you when it comes to consuming queer culture, because what I tend to do is I tend to fall on what I'd call kind of classically queer entertainment.
And what do you mean by that?
As in classical queer, as in I think of kind of older queer movies and older queer filmmakers are the kind of ones that I watch. I don't watch enough of kind of this generation's
contemporary.
Queer. Yeah, the contemporary stuff. I only consume the classical queer.
Well, that's not true though, is it? Because
no.
you watch like Portrait
I
of a
watched
Lady
like
on
Celine
Fire.
Sciamma and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I mean
That's a really
is
good film that everybody should watch.
we'll
Portrait of a
talk
Lady
about
on
it
Fire.
in a minute because I have a question that definitely relates to Celine Sciamma. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just not as good as keeping up with things like modern queer influences and things like that. Just because I'm not all that passionate or active on kind of social media and that kind of stuff, it means that I miss out on a lot of kind of modern queer conversation because I'm busy watching like old gay movies.
What do you
If
mean
know what I
by
mean.
modern queer conversation? Do you mean
As in conversations that are happening right now.
as in
If
what?
that
An
makes sense.
example of?
I don't know. That's
No,
the
but
thing.
example of. You do know because I mentioned things and you're like, I don't know what that is.
Like that person you just mentioned, I've never heard of them.
Oh, a lot Medov. Oh yeah, I get what you mean then. Yeah. Yeah, I think why do you think that is?
I think it's because I dedicate so much time to film, and within film, the the older figures of queer filmmaking are also incredibly important, influential figures in filmmaking in general. And you can see their influence. And so I kind of look through films historically and I find these older filmmakers because I just happen to find them in the first place, if that makes sense. Like, they've all had a very big influence on filmmaking in general, so therefore their films are
For
kind of
name
have that
examples
historical
so people
importance.
can.
I will later because again that's a big question. But people like Pier Paolo Pasolini and people like the Wachowski sisters and people like John Waters, you know, people from like the last few decades, filmmakers from many decades, but like contemporary queer influencers and queer kind of social media people, I don't really catch up on at all. Unfortunately, I need to keep up with that more.
Oh well, yeah. I think in some respect it's important to like keep up with it, but no one's asking you to be like constantly following the queer mainstream because I don't think anyone can exactly because everyone's queer mainstream is different. You know what I mean? It's different
Yeah.
for queer men engaged with drag is completely different for queer men engaged with movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's two completely different art forms. So what's at the center of your mainstream isn't necessarily center of someone who is interested in drag. The only reason drag seems like drag, gender performance, all that seems so like so hard to miss, and when you do miss it you do feel like FOMO is because the recent pickup drag has had in heterosexual mainstream, in Western mainstream.
Straights
even
love drag now.
straights fucking love drag.
I can't get enough of it.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
I think that's kind of what puts me off of like watching Drag Race. Unfortunately, I know it shouldn't, but like, I don't know.
If you like go back and like watch it from like if you watch its growth, you will have more of an appreciation of it.
Yeah.
Because like it's a reality TV show at the end of the day, so a lot of it is just nonsense, but the parts that people genuinely fall in love with it, queer people and straight people are alike, are the queens on this show, and you get to actually know them. Even though if they get the villain edit or they get the winner edit, you still sort of get to know them because you can go and scroll through their Instagram and things like that. So that's what I like about it, because you get to see the art. Because a lot of the time, you don't agree with the judges. They're like, Gigi, you did so amazing this
every
week.
time I hear you talk about Drag Race, you have such a massive opinion from everyone else who's watching Drag Race, and they all have a massive opinion from everyone else. Like, everybody cares so much about specific points in the show and specific people within the show. That for me, it shows that it is like really something quite special.
They're just really good at constructing narratives. Yeah.
I quickly just wanted to say something because yesterday, those of us who love queer cinema kind of had a bit of a great loss. Yesterday, Joel Schumacher died aged 80. For people who don't know who Joel Schumacher is, please look him up, look at his older films. He is one of the great gay filmmakers. He was making really openly unafraid homoerotic cinema all the way through from the 80s to the 2000s. He was responsible for Batman and Robin, which is one of the most homoerotic Hollywood films ever made. The Lost Boys, which is about gay culture. It's amazing. You replace the word vampire with gay and it's a gay movie.
No, I haven't seen that.
He made so many important queer films that helped awaken queerness within the youth, for me included. And I just wanted to quickly give some love to Joel Schumacher because I miss him already. And that's what I had to say about Joel.
That's like, that's a great thing about Pride, because like that sort of really good segue into our next question of like, what does celebrating Pride mean to you? And I think a lot about celebrating Pride for queer people is queer icons, celebrating your queer icons, yes. Knowing queer icons and knowing your queer history, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who helped you give you your rights, and people like Joel Schumacher celebrating his work and his life is, it's not just reserved for Pride, but it's a good thing to do during Pride. Yeah. So
he's the man who put nipples on Batman. That's all you need to know.
Really? Wow.
He gave Batman giant nipples. It's amazing. Ding, ding. You gotta watch it.
Oh god, I will.
I think absolutely, whether you focus on the political side of queer culture or the entertainment side of queer culture, no matter where you look, you will always find icons that really, really resonate with you and help guide you through their work, whether that be political books or films or music or whatever, or learning the history of those people. Looking through the work of important queer figures will guide you to understanding your sense of queerness. I really do believe.
Absolutely, because I feel like for a lot of queer people, it's especially a lot of like just coming out queer people, it can be very scary because there's all these labels, there's all these different sort of parties you can join really, and you don't quite know where you fit in, or you feel more of this but you also feel an ounce of that. So like, do you just pick one over the other? But if you look into queer history, you'll find people exactly like you that perhaps everyone slots them into like the butcher box or the femme box or whatever, but you read about them and you realize they're exactly like you. They have their nuances, they are not just what people have pushed them into be, so other people, i.e. straight people, can understand them to be. Get what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. One thing that's very important when you first kind of come to terms with your queerness is that the only people who aren't you are going to be asking you for labels, right? And also, you don't owe anything to anybody when it comes to your queerness and identifying your queerness. If you cannot find a label that fits you, then there isn't one. And that's it.
And that's okay.
And I kind of came to terms with that recently because like my whole time being a queer person, I've gone through label after label after label with people trying to get something that fits into what they want to hear. And you can just stop. You can just stop if you can't find one. If you can find one, fantastic news. Yeah. Wonderful news. Yeah. You know? You have a label. Labels are fun sometimes.
Because it can kind of put you at ease if you're a person that needs that, but it's also helpful for other people as much as we don't live for other people. If you exist in a space where you kind of, in order to survive, other people have to understand who you are, it can be really comforting. So we're not saying it's a terrible thing to be like, I'm a lesbian or something. Like, that's great, be proud of that, you know what I mean? But if you can't nail yourself to something or declare something without feeling that you have to nail yourself to it, that's also okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was I going to say? One of my friends was responding to someone on Twitter about like, so how do you it was a TERF, trans exclusionary radical feminists that don't believe that trans women are women and therefore
Also
exclude them
known
from
as
feminism.
cunts.
Yes. And this person was like, okay, so how do you define women? And my friend said, someone that identifies with the she her pronouns and believes themselves to be a woman. As far as I'm concerned, they're a woman. And the TERF was like, well, you can't just say your argument can't just be women just are, because being a woman is like having the sociological and psychological sort of influences that makes women experience pain, experience oppression, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, whatever. And that was very interesting. And that your existence isn't enough to declare that you exist, if you get what I mean.
Yes, you being there isn't enough to prove that you're there. So then what is?
Yeah.
That's the big old fucking issue with TERFism, is that what do they want with you? What do they want from you? You know, if you can't give them your existence, what else can you give them? You know,
it just got me thinking that why is it that we need. It just got me thinking. I was talking about it. I don't know what episode, but maybe it was on our Instagram Live. Everyone go watch our Instagram Live episode that we did like a few weeks ago. Talking about the idea of... No, I think we talked about it in Sam's one. The idea of identity actually meaning your experiences, your culture, and it's not your soul, so therefore it's not really real because it's just it's just your thoughts. And how we use that and how we grip onto that to understand the world around us, and we cannot lose that, because then everything apparently will just fall to shit if we don't trust these societal myths and cultural myths that we've been brought up to stand by with all our chest. Not that culture is a bad thing, but it's also, like I said before, an ever-changing thing that deserves growth and adaptation and deserves to be questioned and criticized and whatever, because it's just a fabricated thing. Why not? And it's just very surprising, not surprising, but interesting how people hold on to them so much, and it seems more like fear rather than sort of like morality, to just let go of them and just to accept the fact that to be a woman is not defined by your socialization. It's defined by... it doesn't have to be defined, and if it's going to be defined, it's defined by how that woman experiences womanhood. It's defined by them, defined by their existence, defined by who they are. So to say that to be a woman is socialization and stuff is to therefore say that people outside of the West that do not experience patriarchy, are they therefore not women? You know what I mean? But the people outside of the West, born without patriarchy, in a second world where patriarchy does not exist and it's actually a matriarchy, and people with the vaginas run the place, are they women? You know what I mean? So that's just my thoughts around that specific argument, not the sex argument defining gender, but the socialization argument defining the gender.
So I'm gonna bring it to something that we'll be talking about in the future, which is we're planning on doing something soon, which is going to be like a bit of a film club where we suggest films and we all watch it and then we all talk about it. And we're going to be talking about Donnie Darko, I think, first, because I really like that film. It's a wonderful teen movie that's also very intelligent. And do you remember the scene in that movie, the fear love line?
No.
Basically, there's this guy in the movie who claims that every decision that you make can be measured between it being a decision of fear and a decision of love. And Lonnie just kicks off because there's like a spectrum of human emotion. But I do agree to the extent that we do make decisions that are a combination of fears and loves. Different kinds of fear and different kinds of love. And I agree that TERFism, when you listen to kind of TERFs and hear what they're trying to say, almost always try to make it sound like they're coming from a loving place of like wanting to make these people understand the real truths and all that. But with every exclusionary group within a movement, it is at its core about the fear of something that they
don't understand,
just don't understand,
or
and
don't
don't
want,
know,
or
and don't
fear
want
of
to know.
fear of the unknown, what it's like to let go of something.
Exactly. It's the fear of actually having to change your perspective instead of acting like you've changed your perspective. You know,
Fear of
because
acceptance.
yeah, exactly. It's the fear of actually having to make a movement into understanding the world more accurately, as opposed to understanding the world in the way that you've been taught to. And that's at the core of a lot of queerphobia, transphobia, homophobia, biphobia, is the fear that maybe you're wrong, and you have to prove how right you are by showing these false facts and this fake news, and over again belittling other people by making them the wrong ones. You know, and that's what tough.
Because if you're wrong, one, all the unjustified killings of queer people, that's gonna fuck you up that you let that slide. And two, your immorality is just going to eat you alive, that you've actually been immoral this whole time. You know, you've been on the wrong side. You're gonna feel that guilt. So
Yep, that's why terrorists don't back down. Because if they back down, they were wrong.
yeah.
Even so, they just have to make up facts until they seem right.
That was a bit of a tangent, but do you
Sorry,
have anything
everyone.
else to add to, like, we didn't even answer the question about, like, what celebrating Pride means to you? I think we semi answered it.
Yeah, for me, what celebrating Pride kind of means is having a period of time in which you can treat the world as if it accepts you in a way. For me, that's what the Pride Parade is having that a momentary queer utopia. For me, that's always kind of what it's been. It's been about showing the world that if we were accepted and if we were part of the world and if we had our world the way that we wanted it to, it would be like this.
It'd be beautiful.
And the refusal to conform to expectations and to conform to standards is in itself a protest. The choice to express yourself over the standards and expectations of the place that you live is protest. And therefore celebrating what you are externally is protest. And that's why Pride is both celebration and protest. There's inherent protest to the act of celebrating.
What
Sorry,
world
I
we
talked
live
through a
in.
burp.
I didn't.
Unashamed.
Oh yeah, I love, yeah, just like I always say it, being yourself as loudly as you can, living your truth as loudly as you can in this, and that means not necessarily like coming out, but finding places where you can be out, you know what I mean, where you can be yourself and you can just let it all hang out and yeah, be yourself. Not be this slave or not be thing, but be you. And if you, part of you is queer, being queer, just letting it all hang out. That's what celebrating Pride means to me. Like the other day I put myself in drag and I didn't do it because it was Pride. I did it because I finally got the makeup that I wanted to do it, and I always knew I always been like meaning to do it, but I just didn't have the makeup. And so I did it and it felt great. But that's having pride, just fucking doing something that you love. And plus I'm queer, so it's like I'm doing something for me, for my people, and no, sorry, for my history, acknowledging and accepting and appreciating my history, and also becoming part of my history and things like that. So yeah, living your truth. Only great things will come out living your truth. Only great things.
And I'm going to be honest, I love when it's Pride, doing something very openly queer and watching the homophobes squirm in a place where they can't really do much about it. When it's the Pride Parade, if you're in the parade, there's like nothing that the homophobes going across the street can really do about it besides just go like, we're back, everyone. We went nowhere.
We went nowhere, nothing happened. I didn't down a plate of pasta. Now, on to our next section, Catch the Wave. Send it back. No, never mind. You did it wrong. Yeah, you did. I said send it back, and then you did it at the same time.
No, you did it at the same time as I was sending it back.
No, it's a delay.
This is why Zoom is so hard to work with.
Yeah, it's so hard to work with.
Anyway.
onto our questions.
Questions that we have. Can I get one out of the way?
You guys sent us questions. We're gonna answer them for this Pride episode, and let me say, you guys really outdid yourselves on this one. I'm looking into the camera for people listening on Spotify. You guys outdid yourself. We're gonna keep everyone anonymous because I stated after the fact that if you want to remain anonymous, please let me know. But that was probably before people sent questions in. It's just like we don't want to make anyone unsafe, so we said let's just keep everyone anonymous, and we hope that's okay with you. If you want to be shouted out, just like DM us anywhere. We're really not picky about who we shout out or not. So
I'm gonna give a shout out for this one. This one goes to Dave.
yeah, Dave said he's okay with being in the body.
No, he didn't. But it's a joke question.
Yes,
so. Dave asks, when did we choose to be a gay? I chose to be a gay after I saw a gymnastic performance at a circus, and I went.
Oh, so you're answering this honestly? Oh, sorry.
And after the gymnasts finished their flip, they pointed to me in the audience, and a spotlight came on, and they went, "Why don't you be a gay?" Oh. And I went, "Yeah," and then I got a big round of applause. And Nkara, when did you decide to be a gay?
I thought you were answering it honestly, like when you had your awakening. That's so...
No, it's an insincere question, so I'm giving an insincere
I
answer.
You threw me a curveball there, and I'm still very disappointed.
I'm sorry, I don't remember when my full queer awakening was. That's my legit answer.
There you go.
I don't know, it was always there, I'd say.
When did you choose, though, to, like...
When did you...
choose...
When did I choose to be a gay? I guess the moment I came out.
Sure, there you go. Yeah, same.
There you go.
Cool. We love the spam, David. Thank you so much.
Now for a real question. This is getting cut.
No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm editing, bitch. No, it's not.
Oh yeah, and Kara's gonna edit this episode, so if it sucks,
fuck you. I only gotta turn down my gain. I'm screaming.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Wait, don't touch your gain because then it's gonna go wrong again.
No, it's not.
It's really quiet now.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. There you go. You have to be that close.
Please read the question.
Okay. Wait, me? Okay.
Yes.
Favorite queer creatives people should support?
Christine and the Queens.
Yeah.
What a brilliant woman.
Yes. Did you see her magazine cover? I think it was for Vogue. No. I'm not sure. They did like a full CG magazine cover because like they couldn't like actually do a photo shoot, so they did like a CG one and like in a fancy world and everything, and it's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's like Christine and Queen's like riding a phoenix and stuff. It's amazing.
I fucking love her so much.
It's wonderful. She's so great.
She's a singer, music producer, brilliant artiste. So intelligent.
Yeah, Christine and the Queens. Very, 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 very good answer. I think do a bunch of different queer creatives in a cluster by watching Sunset,
I could literally cry right now. I'm trying to produce tears in the camera.
Which not only stars many queer people, but is also produced and directed by my two favourite queer creatives, the Wachowski sisters. Creators of The Matrix and many other things. Cloud Atlas, fucking Speed Racer. So many films with encoded queerness, and then Sense8 was the opportunity to make something that was very openly queer. And they did an absolutely incredible job of it. They're both such wonderful, beautiful trans women who make the most touching,
I could actually cry right now.
Empathetic, just moving, tender portrayals of queer people and of the queer experience in all of their works, even if they're not very overtly queer. So yeah, I'd say the Wachowski sisters. Watch Sense8 on Netflix. just show them that you're still watching the show and still loving the show, because it deserves so much love and so many views, much more than it did get. So yeah, that's my answer, is the Wachowskis.
I'm currently scrolling. Sorry, I'm currently.
And Nkara's answer is Christine and the Queens.
I'm currently scrolling through my Instagram because I didn't know, not a lot came to mind, but I know I follow a lot. Bob the drag queen, a drag queen on RuPaul's Drag Race that's still fucking popping off and doing brilliant things. He is like him, Peppermint, intelligent, amazing performers, creatives. That they Bob the Drag Queen has a podcast with Monet Exchange where they just chat shit and also talk about really important stuff. And Bob the Drag Queen has recently been posting on his Instagram with Peppermint. They've been talking about more political things at the moment, and like racism within the RuPaul's Drag Race fandom. And for anybody that watches RuPaul's Drag Race knows about it, knows about them hate that them black queens be getting. Who else? Do you have anyone else? Marcos?
Like I said, I watch an uncomfortable amount of old.
Suggest them.
Suggest them. Yeah, but we said people should support, and I don't really know if you can support them all that much. But I'd say definitely look at people like Derek Jarman, because in my opinion, Derek Jarman is the queer art filmmaker. Especially look at Blue, which is a film that he did about his experience with HIV and AIDS, which is a clear blue screen for the whole movie, and it's a soundscape, which he made because he was blind by the end of his life because of his AIDS and could only see the colour blue. So he made a film about his experience from his perspective, and it's a great film when it comes to empathy, which, as you know, is my thing. And also the Brian Eno soundtrack is incredible. Just watch Blue, even if it doesn't really sound
Brian
like
Eno.
your thing, because it's so powerful and so moving.
I just saw a few. What?
Yes. I was going to say...
I'll go first. Thank you. I've even forgotten them. Fucking, shit. Laverne Cox. There we go. Laverne Cox.
Yes.
Brilliant trans woman, actress. Amazing. Oh, I love her so much. Monroe Bergdorf, another trans woman model activist, both black, both brilliant. Monroe Bergdorf is British. Laverne Cox is American. I was going to say USAan. That's not a thing. B. Steadwell is a singer-songwriter, and she has this amazing album. I forget what it's called, but there's a song on the album called Greens, and it's such a good song. But she's a great musician, singer, songwriter, queer woman. I'm not entirely sure of her labels, but she's brilliant. She's fucking brilliant. Yeah, that's all for me.
I'm sorry. This is my most important one, actually. Forget all of them. Celine Sciamma, spelled Sciamma, director of the best film of last year, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, director of Tomboy, Water Lilies, just like so many amazing films. Tomboy is, in my opinion, the greatest film about confronting and questioning your gender identity.
Watch it.
It's ridiculously good. It's about a young child's coming to terms with their gender identity who just doesn't know, and it's about them figuring out their identity, and it's made with such an understanding and such a sincerity that only a great queer filmmaker could do. It's not fucking Eddie Redmayne in The Danish Girl going, I'm a lady. It's actually good.
God.
Whatever you do, don't watch The Danish Girl.
He looked into the camera
Sorry,
when he
that's
said
it.
that. I haven't seen it. Okay, next question, Marcus.
From me.
Yeah.
Okay. This question, completely anonymous. How was our coming out experience? Partially closeted and nervous to tell my family.
Do you want to go first or should
First
I go first?
off, I'll go first. First off, thank you so much for your question. It takes a lot of bravery to actually
Trust in Marcus with that information.
trust me with that information. Maybe a bit of stupidity as well.
Don't do that.
I'm joking. My coming out experience, I was fortunate enough for my whole family to know that I was queer since I was like 2 years old. What is it Jonathan Van Ness says? He goes, the sky's blue, the grass is green, and just points to himself. And I was kind of a similar case. I was kind of different from the other kids. I was always a little camp.
Little fruity.
So when it came for me to come out, I think about 2 years ago now.
Yes.
I'd say. Yeah, I think so, yeah. When it came time for me to come out, it was already very clear in everybody's head besides mine, to the point in which my mum basically virtually just said, okay, you can do it now. It was a day when, because I have mental illness, it was a day when I was having a very, very bad day, and I was already very tearful, and it took a few tries. But I gave my mother a hug, and she was like, "You can tell me anything, Marcus." I was like, "Yep, cool." And then we stopped talking, and then I gave her another hug, and I was crying again, and I was just like, "Oh, you can just say it. You can just say it." And I didn't, and I was like, "Just say it, say it." I was like poking myself in the shoulder, like, come on, and then I just did, and then my mum just went, "Yep, okay," and that was kind of the conversation. And then I went to my sister, and I went, you remember Monsters, Inc.? And she went, yeah. And I said, do you remember how they get into the real world? And she went, yeah, they go out a cupboard. And I was like, and that's how I did that. And then the other sister, I just went, like, queer. And she went, cool. But before any of those people, like 2 months before, I told that person, right there over text, and it was very, very scary, and I was shaking like a leaf. But sometimes what I'd say is, sometimes to be very openly out, you have to kind of put your trust into individuals in privacy, if you can. If you have people that you trust enough. For me, that was a very, very good way to get around it, was to talk to someone who had been through it before, and I trusted with that information. And for me, it was Nkara, because she'd already came out. And then I don't think if I didn't do that, I would ever have the bravery to actually come out to my family. And then I suppose us properly coming out was doing episode 1 of this podcast.
Well, being like
was,
public.
Yeah, publicly out was that, and that was very, very nerve-wracking.
That was nerve-wracking.
If you watch the original video, I'm shaking.
Yeah, same. Like
Absolutely terrifying. So yeah, it's really scary. It's very exciting. But if you're partially closeted, like if you are already somewhat there, just know that you've already made like the first few steps. You've already proven to yourself that you can basically do it. You know? And of course, everyone's situation is different. Some people can't come out, and if you're in one of those situations, then we're not asking you to. But if you are partially closeted, if you're already somewhat out, just know that the hard part, which is that first step, is already done, and you can kind of move on to the good bit. Is what I'd say.
Yeah, that was really nice, really kind, really sound advice. And I like this idea. Karamo Brown talks about it. We even have an episode named after him because he's so brilliant. One of the people in Queer Eye, he said that he doesn't like the idea of coming out. He likes seeing it as like letting people in rather than being out, because as far as coming out is concerned, you never stop doing it. You know what I mean? Because unless you're in queer spaces, 99% of the time people are going to assume that you're cis, straight, whatever. So that initial one is always very hard, but the more you let people in and speak your truth and correct people, whatever, the easier it becomes. And it becomes so easy sometimes you don't even correct people because you're like, I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's okay if you don't know. Like, it's not gonna rock your worlds. You know what I mean? Like, one day you'll find out. I don't. But if a lot of people, it irks them, especially for people going through transitions, they don't like to be misgendered and things like that. So, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. My coming out experience. Whew, my coming out experience. I remember the day before I came out to, it was my mum first, because she was awake and my other parent had gone to bed. The day before, one of my friends at the lunch table came out as like sexuality fluid, and I was like, wow, you are so brave, you are so brilliant, you are just completely like enamored, like absolutely fascinated, like, because this person doesn't come from the most forgiving home, yet they found it within themselves to accept that, and not only well,
Safi's losing her shit. You can hear it on my... Wait, she did one and then stopped. Fuck,
I could mute your end.
True.
Yeah, so this person didn't come from a necessarily forgiving home, so the fact that they could accept that within themselves and then tell that to their friends, trust that information with their friends, was really sort of powerful and inspiring to me, and a wake-up call to me for someone that is in a home that is accepting and someone that does have friends they can trust. It was almost like, what the fuck are you doing lying to yourself? What's the fucking point? Who are you doing this for at the end of the day?
What's my excuse?
What's my excuse? You know what I mean? So I remember that night I was trying to do music work, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about it, like, I like the question of am I attracted to women? What am I going to do about that? And I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was literally like here in my mind. I was trying so hard to focus on my work, but there was just such anxiety and paranoia about, like, is this really fucking true? Let me close my thing. There we go. Yeah, is this really fucking true? And I remember having a shower that evening and just crying in the shower, because I finally sort of said, yeah, this is it. This is me. This is life now. You know, this is scary. This is life now. And then, so the next day, I told that same friend in the morning at breakfast, and I was like almost in tears. I was trying to hold them back, and they were like, yeah, I already knew. And I said, how? What?
And they went, yeah.
But they were so like chill about it, like your mum. They're like, yeah, okay. They're like, yeah, cool, yeah. Don't, like, that's good. I'm glad. I'm happy for you. That sort of vibe. And they're like, yeah, I knew. And yeah, like my friends, they've all been like, is Nkara? And they said like, oh, they don't know yet, so just leave Nkara alone. And they were like, okay. But yeah, and then that evening I told my mum. There's a lot of crying. And a lot of crying, just the similar thing with like, she let me know that she still loved me and things like that, and like, it was a lot of crying because it was mostly like she wondered why I left it out so late, why I was holding all that back and things like that. I was explaining to her because it was assumed on me, because growing up in the church, it's assumed on you, your future is to marry a husband and to live a happy life, and I thought if I couldn't do that, I wouldn't be happy, all that shit. So I was just talking through all that shit. That's why it was a lot of tears. And then when I told my little sister, more crying, because she was mostly upset that like the church made me feel like that, or anyone made me feel like that. She was really, really upset by that. And then I told my dad the next day, and more crying just because he gave me like such great advice. I'm even getting emotional thinking about it. He gave me such great advice, and he was just so, he said, what did he say? We don't fish swim, right? You can't make a fish fucking jump into a tree like a dog would, or like a bird would. You can't force a fish to ride a bicycle. So why would you force yourself to do something that is not you, that is not your nature, that is not your purpose? And I still think about that, thinking about like coming back to my balance and my natural state and who I am. And yeah, that was my experience, just a lot of crying. And then I told my friends, it was like, once you do it, you literally just want to tell everybody. Like, I could
again,
literally, like, you just, because
Yeah.
it's just, the only way I can describe it is just like this utter release. So much so that
It's cathartic.
I cannot live in a lie ever again. Like, I just see no reason to hold my tongue anymore. Like, I fucking can't do it. I cannot do it. It burns me inside to hold on to something, because after holding on to something for, you pause, sorry. After holding on to something for like 16, 17 years, that shit's exhausting, man. So once you do it, it's like the biggest weight lifted off your shoulders. Yeah, so I told my friends, told people at parties that, like, I was just going off, and then I was like, I gotta reel this in, because I'm very...
It's gonna become the only thing I talk about.
Yeah, but I was still
yeah.
feeling like conscious about it, and I wanted to do it the right I was still just feeling conscious about it, so I was like, I gotta reel this in. But yeah, my experience was emotional. It was eye-opening. I found it easier to tell individuals rather than telling groups of people, because like I said, it's about letting people in. You can let groups of people in your life, but if it's something, if coming to terms with that in yourself is very emotional and very hard for you, it's easier to do it in an intimate moment rather than like, hello, here I am, you know what I mean? If you're that type of person that can handle that, go for it. But personally, I couldn't, until something like a podcast rather than like an Instagram post, you know what I mean? And let me do that publicly. Like, not everyone was going to listen to it. Only people that really cared or were nosy would listen to it. So
exactly, it's like sending an invitation, you know?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. I remember you coming out and kind of just going like, finally,
Like,
almost. Like, I think in a lot of cases, the people around you, even if they don't know that you're queer, know that there's something about you that you're not willing to show. And in the case of you, I clocked like the day I met you.
everyone says that, but I thought I was serving straight heterosexuality.
No.
Like, straight heterosexuality, but turns out no.
No. But it's one of those cases of it's basically everyone, unless you're in a space where you know that people are homophobic, basically everyone that you invite in will either be surprised and excited, or be excited and not surprised.
Yes.
You know? And
either way, they're going to be happy for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Either way.
Because the people that you should be inviting in should be the people that are excited for you to live.
That you know will be excited for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so yeah, that's the answer.
Yeah, and the journey doesn't end there, because now you've opened the floodgates. You can dip your toe. You're in the queer space. You're in the queer, glorious web universe. It's solar system. You can hop onto any planet you want. Go for it. You know.
Yeah.
But if you're partially out, I guess you've done that initial sort of feeling with already someone. But there's no reason you have to be public and loud. Public and no reason you have to be 1,000% public. Like we said, invite people that care about you. You know what I mean? It's an invitation, not a what's the opposite of an invitation? What's the opposite of an invitation?
A rejection? I don't know.
It's like an exclusive party. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's
not an exclusive party, but a party that needs an invite. Because not everyone...
Yeah, exactly.
But a lot of the times, people can already be invited without you inviting them, because they're aware that there's things outside of being straight and cis. You know what I mean?
Yep. And sometimes people are going to crash that party. And but hey, if it's someone that you just forgot to invite and they crash the party, they're like, hey, that's good news. Yeah. Anyway.
Anyways, yeah.
You want to?
It was hard to reflect about that. Jeez.
Yeah.
Woo. Let me do a question. But thank you for your question.
The thing is that once you're out in the queer space, sometimes like the coming out experience feels like it was quite a long time ago, almost. Even though I still find myself having to come out somehow.
It is.
Somehow I have to keep coming out. But it's like that whole thing of like learning how to ride a bike or something like that, like when you first start, it can be challenging, and you make a conscious effort to like keep learning and keep riding that bike. But once you like can ride a bike, and once you have been riding a bike for a while, it's something that you hardly even think about. You just kind of drop it into a conversation when you initially meet somebody, that like, as a queer person or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's all. At one point, hopefully that's as simple as it is, and if you get to that point, then you've done a fantastic
Well done
job.
for being brave and coming out in the first place. That's
Exactly.
just put out there. Okay,
The fact
next
that you
question.
asked that question was wonderful.
Yes. Sorry. Next question. What was your school like in dealing with homophobic related incidents?
What good question. My secondary school were pretty bad with that, because my secondary school was extremely dodgy. Everybody there, every single kid was basically a conservative family white kid. There were 2 black people in the school, I think. And every time that I witnessed some form of homophobia or queerphobia at the school, I never really saw it having any repercussion. I remember one day sitting in maths, and a friend who I'd had since year 7, this was in year 11, turned to me and went and told me that he believes gay people are basically paedophiles. And I immediately turned to the people behind me and said, blank just said that gay people are just as bad as paedophiles. And then they immediately went, hey teacher, blank just said that gay people are just as bad as paedophiles. And the teacher said, well, don't pay attention to him and carry on doing your work. And it never got reported. And that guy went on to pass everything at that school with no repercussion. Because it all comes down to the authority at that school. If the authority in that school partly believes what that person is saying is true, or believes that they can say it without consequence, then there won't be a consequence. And so that school evidently was not doing a good job with that at all. When it comes to 6th form, I never really witnessed much in terms of queerphobia or homophobia at the school. That was just me luckily not being around people who would do that kind of thing. I kind of picked the people that I was with quite well, I believe. But maybe you had a different experience, Nkara. I don't know.
I don't know, because I remember very vividly like gay, fag, lesbian, dyke being used as insults, because I would also call things gay when I was like in year 7 and stuff. And I remember a teacher did an assembly about it, and I was like, oh God, I'm such a terrible person, because I know it's bad, but I just say it so people think I'm cool. And then I remember for like 2 weeks people didn't say it, then it just happened again. And but again, I remember girls insulting girls by calling them lesbians, but then there would be out girls, but the girls that were out were always like the troublemakers or like the edgy girls, so people still turned their nose down at them. And that extra layer of homophobia was just like an extra layer of like, let's not like this person. But when I did hang around boys and stuff in the younger years, a lot of homophobia of like, oh, but you're fucking gay though, you're a fucking fag though, but a lot of that as in like locker room talk, and it would never get reported. No one did a shit about it. I never saw any sort of like abhorrent acts or like cyberbullying or bullying, but again, I'm not a queer man. I identified as straight then, so I would have been blind to that even if it did happen. But I knew it was a very homophobic space, and if you were queer, it wasn't talked about, or if you were queer, you didn't talk about it, and people just assumed it on you, and if someone asked you about it, you would say that you're straight. But I remember the boys particularly being very afraid about being called gay. Like, they were so afraid. Like, this boy literally asked me, like, like they'll be running jokes with boys like, oh, this boy's gay, that's why he doesn't have a girlfriend, or like there would be, and I would always be sort of like grossed out. I'd be like, why the fuck would you say that? And even if, who cares if he's gay, like I would always try and implement that, but they'd be like, oh no, it's just a joke. But still, if you were, there was a lot of just like banter, a lot of banter. What
Can
else? Wait, give me a second. Yeah, going into sixth form, I didn't. I think there was a lot of people feeling the need to be PC and holding their tongues, especially in straight spaces, because especially the straight spaces that I occupied, because I know if they said something wayward, I would say something about it, or if they did say something wayward, I would pipe up. So they would say something and be like, "Oh no, I'll say that there, am I?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, you're not allowed to say that there, are you?" So the people
Correct.
that were like fucking calling people fags and stuff, they sort of were like definitely still homophobic, have some internalized homophobia, but sort of just like, I gotta be PC now, might get reported. But since leaving that school, they're all climbing up to sixth form, it's so nice to see so many young queer girls like just like living their best life, like holding hands on their way to school and stuff. It just made me so happy, because
Yeah.
if I could not, even in my year 13, I could have not let more than my circle of 5 friends know that I was queer, let alone hold hands and have a girlfriend. And these fucking, like, I don't know how old they were, but they must, anyone 16 and under, not in sixth form, fucking doing that was just so brilliant to see. And obviously homophobia probably still exists in their years, but the bravery that they had is brilliant. So I definitely know that the space has developed and maybe become more accepting to the point where people feel safe enough to do those things. But I also remember teachers being anti-homophobic. I never heard teachers say homophobic things, but just the teachers I had, because I remember we had a citizenship lesson, which was basically a lesson where we did like politics, sex ed, like we just learned about the world. And we were having our relationships sex ed thing, and we were talking about gay relationships and stuff, homosexual relationships, and the teacher, I don't think the teacher was like trying to remain neutral, even though she was a Christian, and she sort of said that she was like, she accepts it, but it's like not for her, if you get what I mean. She sort of did
Yeah.
that whole thing, but one of the kids in the class piped up and said, no, I don't think it's okay. But then the rest of the kids were like, bitch, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, how could you? Okay, like that's a dumb thing to say. Meanwhile, we called each other gay as an insult. So it was just,
Yeah.
it was very that.
One thing that I will say, if you're in an education environment and you're kind of on the lookout for queerphobic behaviours, in authority figures, in teachers, in lecturers, spot those times in which clearly queer kids, get in trouble for things that everybody does, because that's when the homophobia comes up. Always be on the lookout when you're in education for queer kids getting in trouble for behaviours that all kids do. It's a very, very common thing with a lot of teachers to almost pick on the queer kid where they have an excuse because their behaviour's been bad, but when it's behaviour that the straight kids get away with. So, for example, I'm not saying that it was the direct reason, but in secondary school, and I've always been quite clearly camp. In secondary school, my friends a lot of the time would ask me if I was gay and all that. And one day before class started in the morning, me and a group of friends were hanging out in a room with our phones out. And I was a little bit camp that morning and a little bit jovial. And a teacher came in and chose out of all of us to take my phone away, when the other kids were clearly straight. Not only that, but he decided to take the phone away when the only reason that I had it out was because my father's chemotherapy had just started that day and I was awaiting news. And I explained that to him, and he said, I don't care. And he took it away. Now, I'm a clearly openly camp person, and I'm not entirely sure that that situation would have went down the same if it was any of the other kids that he'd picked that day, you know? And yeah, so just be on the lookout for the queer kid in class getting picked on by the teacher and getting punished by the teacher for behavior that you see a lot of the other straight kids doing. Just be on the lookout.
And look out for banter, because that's where you find most of the fucking queer phobia is in banter. People saying, oh, so-and-so looks like a boy. Oh, I would never. Da, 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 da. Oh, like, that's where you find most of it. And being like, oh, no, it's just a joke, though. Like, fuck off. I remember, this is not like an incident, but I where was I? I think we were in a pub. And it was one of our, like, year group meetups. We were in a pub, or we were at a party, I don't know. But I saw, like, everyone was there, we were all hanging out on a group or a table, and this person was, like, very waved, and they saw me, they said, oh, Nkara, this guy, by the way, oh, Nkara, oh my god, you look so feminine. And I said, I just literally started laughing, because I was like, I was not expecting that to come at you.
What a twist.
I was not excited.
You look so feminine.
And he said it so just like, wow, look at you. You look so feminine. And I had to laugh. And he was like, what are you laughing at? Because what? What?
Who, me?
Like, I don't know how I was supposed to take that. How was I supposed to take that?
It's just like a statement.
How?
I'd just say, like, okay.
Like
what is...
There are so many layers to that, I don't even want to unpack it, but I was just like, wowee. Not like that wasn't something, like, I was obviously offended by it, because it's like, okay, I'm attractive all of a sudden? Okay, whatever. But
thank you so much for my femininity giving me value.
Yeah.
To you.
But that's just an example. That's a very minute example of banter or people slipping up, microaggressions, shit like that. See it, monitor it, acknowledge it, call that person out, or support, if you don't have the bravery to do that, support the victim in that case. Give them a space where that doesn't exist, and you don't accept that shit.
Yeah, you can't always call somebody out, but you can always help the victim, you know. Should I do a question?
Yeah.
This is my last question, because Nkara's more popular than I am. And she has a lot more questions.
Followers.
She's an influencer. This question comes from a good friend of ours. I'm pretty sure I'm gay, but my mind won't let me say it to others. How do you deal with internalized homophobia?
First of all, congratulations on being gay. Can we just give a round of applause?
Thank you very much for telling us that you are gay, because...
No, just for being gay.
And for being, yeah.
Because I'm actually being straight. I'm so sorry.
I have nightmares. I wake up and I go... I'm still queer. Being straight must be scary.
I'm fine. Yeah, congratulations on that. Sorry, read the question again. I've already forgotten with all my theatrics.
I'm pretty sure I'm gay, but my mind won't let me say it to others. How do you deal with internalized homophobia?
Woo! Don't I know this one?
Yeah.
Do you want to say something first? I'm thinking.
How do I deal with internalized homophobia? It's such a difficult question. I am also thinking. Sorry if this segment takes a little while.
No, I will go first then.
Yeah, please.
Do you understand the root of it? Because I know for my internalized homophobia, it came from my religious values and what I was, as much as I learned beautiful and amazing beliefs from religion, the whole idea that they never said I couldn't marry a woman, but they only said that I could marry a man. That sort of indoctrination is definitely where my internalized homophobia came from. And that led on to what my idea of being my ideas of being the right woman, because that's something you're also taught in Christianity, what type of a good woman is. And that led to me, like, what how I see femininity and the tight little box I used to put it in, and learning where that came from. So acknowledging that there are perhaps things and questions I have about religion was very helpful for me to sort of drop some of my internalized homophobia. And the fact that you've already accepted it, it also, you know it within yourself, it also gives you an opportunity to drop any sort of internalized homophobic behaviors that you had. Because going from like growing up in school, I can reflect and realize I had so many gross internalized homophobic behaviors because I was trying so hard to present as straight. And it seems like you're a grown person, so you can probably reflect on that and see the wrongdoings in that, and sort of learn how to not do that, if you get what I mean. And for one of them, there was someone that was clearly queer that I didn't see obviously at that age in my friendship group, but me and the friends in that group were always like, oh, you would look so good in a dress, like, oh my god, can we just do your makeup, can we just give you a makeover? Because I just had this narrow idea of femininity and what a woman and what a beautiful woman looked like. And I reflect on that, and now I know that I wouldn't wish that upon anybody ever, to force them to be something that they're not. And to be honest, even when you do come out, it's still there. It's still very much there, because it's the thing that stops you from coming out, being open all the time, being loud all the time, that homophobia, that what you are is wrong, that what you are is not worth it, that what you are shouldn't exist. And the only thing I can really tell you is that what you are is just the way it should be. Everything is just as it should be. Nothing is not as it should be. So what you are is absolutely perfect the way it is. I know that sounds cliche, but it's true. It's undoubtedly true. There is no reason you should be anything else than you are. And perhaps you can't say it out loud is because you don't believe that. So you have to find it in yourself to believe that. Maybe that's connecting with other queer people. Maybe that's dropping the behaviors you have. Maybe that's watching queer media that you feel represented in. But at the end of the day, you need to do that for yourself in order to be happy. And not come out to be happy, but accept yourself. Come out to yourself in order to be happy.
Yeah. I wish I could have heard someone say that to me when I was a kid. I really do. Internalized homophobia. As someone with mental illness and as someone who is queer, I understand that internalized homophobia is that form of self-loathing which so many people with mental illness also experience. And if I have one thought that I keep thinking to myself, in order to come to terms with my own sense of self-loathing, it's that every person throughout their upbringing keeps having these layers put onto them really, really quick, so fast that we don't even have time to think about them. And as we grow as people and as we get older, those layers still keep getting put onto us, just a little bit more slowly. But internalized homophobia for a lot of people happens in their youth. But underneath all of these layers, there is a sense of self which is completely satisfied with itself, because yourself cannot be anti-yourself. Your layers surrounding yourself, this cellophane wrapping all around you, is the thing that's causing this self-loathing. So, like Nkara said, it comes from somewhere, and that somewhere isn't you, it's something else. It's a layer. And through becoming more understanding of yourself and through living your truth, that internal layer becomes stronger and those outside layers become confronted. And you will find times in your life, I promise you, as long as you continue to live what you believe to be your truth, where you get to confront those layers and take them off. And internalized homophobia is another one of these layers. And I I promise you that it's not you. It is something that you get taught, and it's something that you can unteach yourself. It's difficult, and I know it's difficult because I'm still not all the way there, but it's not you. You just have to keep saying that to yourself. The internalized homophobia isn't you. The gayness is you. That's you. Gayness is part of who you are as a person. It's part of your core self. It's opinions, ideologies are all something that you get taught, and you either get taught the right ones or the wrong ones, and it's just one that you've been taught wrong. Self-loathing is something that you are taught, and it's something that you learn, and it's something that you can unlearn. And I always suggest that the greatest way to do that is, as I always say, meditation, because I think it's a time where you have no excuse not to be confronting yourself. But I take it from someone who I know is from a similar upbringing as you, and someone who has these same difficulties, that it just isn't you. It's just not. So don't treat it like it is. Treat it. Your internalized homophobia is like this bug crawling under the skin, right? And you can see it. You can see it moving around, but you don't see it and go like, damn, my bug is being all weird today. You go, the bug inside of me is being feisty today. And you just got to cut it out. You've just got to cut it out. And you need the right equipment too. And that's why I suggest meditation. But it's about confidence in defying those internalized negative thoughts.
And knowing that inner you, that soul, that spirit that is essentially you, not your internalized phobia, is there. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
Knowing that it's there.
And knowing that you have a direct transport to it.
Yeah.
You just have to ignore all of the signs going by telling you that this road works and whatever, and just keep driving down into like what you are as a person, through things like meditation, through confronting yourself,
through talking to people, through consuming things, through anything that you find to be helpful when you're feeling down, when you feel like the world is against you. Do that.
The fact that you can recognize it as internal homophobia proves that you know that it's not you. It's a separate thing. You've identified it as a separate thing. It's your queerness, but it's not your internalized homophobia. It is internalized homophobia. It's not yours. It's just been shoved in you. And you can take it out and give it straight back to them. Or you can just stomp it on the fucking ground.
Burn that shit.
Burn that shit.
Yeah.
Burn it.
Yeah,
Peaked my microphone probably. But yeah, just, it's not you. It's not you, it's not
Everything
you.
is just as it should be. Everything is just, your spirit is just as it should be. Who the fuck you're attracted to is just as it should be. Why would it be any fucking thing else? Why? Next question. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. Brilliant.
Go on then, Nkara.
Go on then. Not really a question, but I was just wondering if you could talk a bit about bi-erasure.
I don't know what that is.
Sure. Sorry. I don't know what that question's. I don't know what that not question was about. I'm so sorry.
I'll see you later.
Sorry, there's what? Gay, straight, nothing else.
It's not my course.
Not my course. Not my
specialty.
Not my portion. A pigeon just flew across my window and it casted like a beautiful shadow.
That's wonderful. Anyway,
I would like you to speak about this because you once claimed the label bi. I don't know if
bi-erasure.
Bi-erasure, as in
bi-erasure. I heard bi-erasure and I thought it was like biracial Asian, and that's why I was so confused. Nkara, I'm not kidding.
I thought you were doing a bit. I really thought you were doing a bit.
No, I wasn't. I really thought that it was something else because I had birasia and not bi-erasure.
Sorry, I'm terrible at pronouncing my words. Thanks. Bi-erasure.
Bi-erasure.
As in
it's
erasing
everywhere.
bisexuality.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's in the media. It's in the water.
It's in the water.
It's turning the frickin'
it's in
frogs
the air.
gay. Yeah, bi-erasure is a big old fucking awful issue, because what you'll tend to find is that the media is very, very accepting of bi icons as soon as they can turn them into gay icons or straight icons. And you can see it through all of media, all of cinema, all of television, all of fucking everything. Half of the people that are bi within the media are not labeled so. I mean, David Bowie is a gay icon, even though he married 2 women. He's a gay icon, not a bi icon. He can't be a bi icon because bisexualism is just
Don't call it an ism.
Bisexuality is just a pathway to being straight
religion.
or gay.
Yeah.
In the perspective of the straight media, especially.
And I think in the queer media too, because people are
absolutely.
you'll settle, no,
Yeah, you'll figure it out. I hear you'll figure it out a lot. I figured it out.
I decided.
I figured it out.
What I said.
Bisexual isn't like and I'm working on it.
If I say I'm working on it, I'm working on it. But if I say
if I told you that I was bi-curious,
then I'm working on it.
Then that means I'm working on it. But I'm not. And I'm someone who doesn't necessarily identify as bisexual. I did when I initially came out because it's easier to explain than saying that you're pretty demisexual. Because then people are like demigods, and you just can't be asked to explain what demisexual is. If you go back to the first video, I call myself bi, which is wrong. But I was for a while, and I understand the bi experience, and there's a lot of agony and frustration in the bi experience of hearing those phrases. You'll get there. You'll find yourself. Not congratulations on finding yourself. And when you come out as gay, a lot of the time, it's conclusive, right? It's the full stop. I'm gay. Mm-hmm. I'm bi. You know, that's kind of what it is. Yeah. I guess I'm bi right now. And because you constantly hear that you are in this state of change, I mean, everyone's always in a state of change, but when you get told it over and over and over again, you believe that your bisexuality is not valid at all. And not only that, the bisexual image is so linear in the fact that there's 2 images of bisexuality, which is the David Bowie rock star and like the teen girl who's bisexual. And either way, it's very sexualized. I am someone who used to identify as bisexual. I am not a sexual person, like, at all. I'm just not. I am evidence that the stereotype of bi people being sexually hyperactive and sexually promiscuous and they're all poly, like every single bi person just fucks everyone that they know, you know, like they're just fuck machines, like David Bowie. It's ridiculous and it's offensive and it's rude and it's degrading. And it's just plain false. And sorry, back to bi-erasure.
Yes.
Because, yeah, now I'm talking about bi-stereotypes. Bi-erasure, yeah, my thoughts on bi-erasure is that it needs to fucking stop. And that's my thoughts on it. I feel as if bi-erasure within media and entertainment exists mainly because some audience members just don't understand when a character is bi at all.
Or they feel like they can't. The producers feel like audiences won't be able to understand because they don't connect with it personally. I remember seeing a review for the film Velvet Buzzsaw starring Jake Gyllenhaal, which isn't a very good film, but it's super entertaining. Jake Gyllenhaal's character in that movie is bi, and I remember seeing a gay critic going, "Okay, so Jake Gyllenhaal like fucks a man in this movie and then a girl," and it's just like and he goes, "The writers didn't even know what this character was. They didn't even pay enough attention. They forgot that in the last scene they made the character gay." And I saw the movie and I went, "Oh, a bisexual character. That's really exciting. I'm excited for that." And even then, that character was promiscuous as fuck.
Like character was like cheating. Cheating is another massive thing in bi representation. They're shown as cheats. But yeah, bi erasure is something that's very, very, very much internalized. Um, I I used to think to myself that, you know, if I ever got a girlfriend, I I'm unsure if I would be willing to take her to Pride, because then I'd be seen as straight. You see a same sex couple dressed in a queer outfit and people assume straight person appropriating our culture. You know? Because for a lot of people, bisexuality just simply doesn't exist.
And also because it's not about being half gay, therefore you're gay. It's about that people think if you're half straight, well, then you're straight. You're like straight passing, therefore you're not really valid as a queer person.
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
where you still are valid and you still have different struggles, even though you can be straight passing. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you need to be dismissed as a whole category, because all you're doing when you say bi people don't exist, or I don't really understand being bisexual, just pick one, you're referring back to this idea that we can only understand things in binaries, and what that's what creates homophobia and transphobia and misogyny and things like that things can only be understood as this and this, that things aren't allowed shades of grey, that things aren't allowed to be ever changing, which is ridiculous because our world is constantly ever changing. Yeah.
And also, I think that the people's understanding of what bisexual means is also most of the time just wrong, in the fact that there's a massive, massive common misconception, and it's a critique that I hear a lot in the queer community even, which is that identifying as bisexual is non-binary excluding, you know? Because...
I was like, it's not. Because
Yeah.
bisexual means a lot of things to different people. It can mean being
Yeah.
attracted to the binary of man and woman, but it could also mean attractive that people's gender attracts you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. Being
Whatever
yeah,
that
and,
gender may be, but it's their
or it may
gender
even
that attracts you.
or even bisexual may mean that you are attracted to the two sexes. You know, you're
Yeah.
attracted to both sexual organs, both sexual physical appearances, which is common for a lot of bisexual people. For them, that's what it means. It's not excluding non-binary people. It's not excluding binary non-conforming people. It's just you're bisexual. You know, it's that person's definition at that time. If they say they're something, then they are that thing. You can't take it away from them.
It's just the
You
same.
know?
Yeah, people love I think what I love about the queer experience and being queer is that there's so much acceptance in being ever changing and moving as we are as human beings. And when people try and take that away from us by saying you can't be bi, we need to exclude this in order for this definition to make sense, we need you to nail down this label here, it just detracts from what being queer means. And that's when we run into issues like bi erasure and misrepresentation of bi people. So yeah.
Yeah.
Should we move on, or do you have
Yep.
sorry?
No, I was just gonna say my opinion on bi erasure is that done.
Done. That's it.
Done.
I really don't want to rip through these questions, but we're running out of time.
We are very much so.
I don't know. So this is a two-parter. I don't know if this is something either you can. I'm so close to the mic. Let me open this up. Ooh, that's not big at all. Oh, didn't make it any bigger. Oh, here we go. I don't know if this is something either of you can speak about, but internalized biphobia or feeling that not being in a same-sex relationship takes away from your queerness and identity. I think we kind of just touched on that.
Yeah. Being in a same-sex relationship, I like I
That
said.
sorry,
when
not
I first,
being in a same-sex relationship. Yeah, it takes away from your queerness and identity. Yep.
Yeah. When I was first, yeah, when I first came out, I really did think to myself that I just can't really be in a relationship with a woman or someone of the opposite sex. Like I just can't, because as soon as I do, I am no longer queer. I no longer experience queerness, which is
Not
looking
true.
back at it, it just feels absolutely ridiculous that by me embracing my sexuality, which in that case was bisexual, and having a sexual relationship with someone who is one of the binaries, which is by definition what I am, is going to remove me from queerness. And like I said, there is that fear when you're in a queer space that you come in with a partner of the opposite sex and suddenly no one in the room really sees you as one of them anymore. I mean, I remember meeting people in the LGBT society at my university for the first time, and a girl came in with her boyfriend, and I kind of just went like, what?
Now what's this
Oh.
about?
And then I just went, oh, okay, and then I moved on. But there is that moment for everybody when you just go, wait, what's this? And you're like, oh, I totally misread the entire situation. Why the hell would a straight couple be going to the LGBT society anyway? Maybe it's a little bit of biphobia
Yeah.
and bi-erasure.
Maybe it's a little...
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can sort of deal with internalized biphobia in the way as we describe internalized homophobia, removing those layers that have been projected onto you because they're not you. You are what you are.
Yeah.
Another question, as queer people, why is it still important to celebrate Pride? I will start off with this one. Like we said earlier, to celebrate your truth and to celebrate who you are is often contrary to Western ideals, because Western ideals are so fucking narrow. they are this Western ideals compared to the entire population of the planet and the entire population of the West. So to celebrate who you are is political, whether it's in the month of June or not. And it's important to celebrate your pride, your queerness in the month of June, because it not only honors the history of queer activism and queer protests and queer riots that brought us these beautiful rights that we have today, to do podcasts like this, to post about this, to march on the streets every June. It's also giving, just reminding yourself that you should be celebrating your truth, and that everyone in this world wants to celebrate their truth, but it's these fucking projections, it's these fucking narrow ideals that are stopping us, and that's the only thing that is stopping us, because these ideals are just ideology, they are myths, and we do not have to live by them if we don't want to. That is why it's important to celebrate Pride. Honor your ancestors, not ancestors, I'm not calling anybody old, oh my god. Honor the activists, the creatives, and honor yourself and the people around you.
Yes. Celebrate Pride because you're worth celebrating and you're worth being proud of. And not only that, everyone around you who may not be able to celebrate Pride is worth celebrating and worth being proud of. Speak for them. Celebrate for them if you can't even celebrate for yourself. If you have too much internalized homophobia to join Pride for yourself, join Pride for others, and then join Pride
because
for yourself.
Because we see you, those people that like, just like those questions that we had, we see you, the people that cannot come out, that cannot accept it within themselves, that cannot scream, that cannot make podcasts, that cannot march, we see you and we honor you and we honor your struggle, because we've all been there in some capacity, obviously not in your capacity, but we've all been there in some capacity, so we know, we know, and we feel it, and we're honouring you and we're honouring ourselves at the same time. We're honouring you through honouring ourselves. Yeah,
absolutely. You're worth celebrating.
This is just some fun, nice sort of ego boosting questions, not to be offensive or anything, but why do you and Marcus keep making great content? Like, it's just great conversations and just clapping emoji, smiling emoji.
Well, that's a very good question. Thank you very much for asking.
Please don't.
Why do I keep making great content? Because we're having fun.
Yeah, that's me having fun.
That's why you enjoy it, because we're having fun, and hopefully you do too. And if you do, then that's what makes it good.
If you do, subscribe and share. I want to save some of these questions for later, because I'm going to I'm going to do a spiel. So I don't want to do a spiel in the middle and it accidentally lasts half an hour. So let me just cherry pick. Oh, because this one relates to what we said earlier. How do you come out to people whose reactions you are afraid of? Well, I'll tell you what first came to my head. Don't. That's what first came to my head.
Yeah,
which is
I was thinking the same thing.
But at the same time, it's difficult because those people might be your parents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can't give much advice for this because I haven't really had to come out to many people whose opinions I was afraid of. I've only ever had to come out to people's whose opinions I knew wouldn't be too high. Is the worst that I've ever had. But I suppose if you're afraid of what somebody's opinion is going to be, maybe you're not entirely ready to come out yet.
Yeah.
It's just, in my opinion, and you're free to disagree because this is very touchy, you're not ready yet.
And it's your experience, and you'll know.
It's about you. And if you think that you are putting yourself at risk, or you think that you are going to damage something which is important for you, then don't yet.
And it's not, and I think, especially if it's a contentious relationship like your parents, you feel like you're lying to them, and you can't lie to your parents because you love your parents. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's lying, it's more protecting yourself. And I guess if that's telling them that this girl's your friend rather than your boyfriend, or this boy's your friend rather than your boyfriend, then yeah, do what you got to do to protect yourself, because even if that relationship won't be damaged, if it's gonna hurt you, if what they think of you, it may be bad, and that's what's gonna hurt you, don't put yourself through that. You've got plenty of life to put yourself through that. When you found yourself and you're grounded with yourself, and your parents' opinions of you, or someone that you look up to, their opinion of you does not matter, because it shouldn't matter. No, that I always say, don't idolize anybody, because we're all the fucking same, and we're all the fucking same at the end of the day. Parents, fucking Beyonce, everybody's the same. Okay, I don't care. Don't put yourself through pain that you're, one, not ready for, and two, that you don't necessarily need to go through. Unless you're willing to go, unless you feel like you're ready to take that on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't want any queer people being hurt if they don't have to be. You know? You have to protect yourself. And the act of coming out for a lot of us is protecting ourselves, because being open and being vulnerable is a way of protecting yourself from those damaging mentalities that were keeping you hidden in the first place. But if something external doesn't feel right, don't do it. Just don't do it. If you feel as if you can't tell somebody that you are queer, don't.
And also, how do you're afraid of what they might say. It sounds like, let me read it again. Whose reactions, how do you come out to people whose reactions you are afraid of? Ask why you're afraid of their reactions. And ask them if your fear is truly informed, or is it another dose of internalized homophobia?
Are you afraid of them, or are you afraid of you?
Yes. Because we love to do that to ourselves, put ourselves through anxiety and all that shit. So if you understand why you're afraid of them, and if that fear makes sense, great. Whether that fear makes sense or not, you just gotta drop it. You know what I mean? You can't live with this, I'm lying to this person, or when am I going to tell this person? When it happens, it will happen, so you do it right. Some people don't come out to people like that until they're fucking 40, but they're living their best queer life every day.
Yeah, exactly. It's not...
And this is just our opinions, by the way, because obviously we don't understand your situation.
Every situation is different.
Yeah.
But hiding your queerness to protect yourself isn't inherently lying. It's just keeping a part of the truth for yourself. You know, it's keeping your truth and not letting
Keeping it
everybody
sacred, not
else
letting it be tampered.
participating.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like if you have a favorite kettle and you live with someone who loves smashing kettles, you can still love the kettle and keep it in your underneath your bed. You know, it's just you can still love yourself and be proud of who you are, and also not fully express your entire truth to people who don't really want to hear it.
Yeah, do what you feel's right. Make a truthful assessment. Don't rely on your
Mm-hmm.
anxieties, and thrive in the spaces in which you're allowed to thrive.
Exactly.
Next question. Those two questions are similar, so I'll save them to at the end. I think we only have 3 questions left. I think that's all the images I sent you, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Let me just check again. Yeah, sickage. Wow, we
Fantastic.
really pulling through these questions.
We plowing through.
Plowing through these questions. Let me open my logic again.
We're going real speedy or something.
Okay. Oh fuck. Okay. What's your opinion on how modern masculinity has affected queer relationships? That's an interesting question. The contemporary understanding of masculinity has affected queer relationships. You identify as a male.
I do.
So, one, what is
Unfortunately.
your contemporary understanding of masculinity? Because as far as I'm concerned, not a lot has changed. But obviously, I don't identify as a male. So, yeah, what do you think about that? What a disgusting thing. No.
What an awful thing it is. Here's the thing about masculinity. You don't have to be masculine to be a man. It's like me and Nkara had a conversation a while ago, and I said that there's a difference between femininity and womanhood. And I said you don't have to be feminine to be a woman at all, and you don't have to be masculine to be a man. And so when I say this, I'm not attacking men. Masculinity fucking sucks, okay? Masculinity actually sucks.
Explain what you think about it sucks.
Masculinity is power. It's dominance. It's a lack of empathy. It's understanding that your value comes from your relations to everybody else around you, and how much you are superior to them, and how much you protect them as their superiors. You know, it's the idea of God is the ultimate masculine figure, right? Whether you believe in God as a positive force or a negative force or whatever, our Abrahamic God, is seen as a masculine figure to a lot of people who want to use it to their advantage, because we see God as above us, and we see God as our protector, and us all being kind of below God in these negative masculine terms. And I think it's Mary Daly, who is a TERF, and I don't like.
Yes.
But I did like when she said, as long as God is a man, man is God. Masculinity is about godliness, it's about power, it's about control, it's about dominance, and it's about being morally good because you are above others, not being morally good because it's morally good. And that's the issue. And
how do you think that affects queer relationships?
It affects queer relationships. I feel as if there's a lot of stereotypically conflict within some queer relationships, and a lot of the time that conflict can happen because people are trying to hold on to their masculinity, and with that masculinity their sense of control within the relationship. And if you have two people in the relationship who cling on to this toxic masculinity, then they're both plying for control. And if two people ply for control, it's like two really strong fucking magnets like that, and you can't pull them away. There's conflict there, and there's tension there. inherently within
Or like
two
two
toxically masculine
Souths
people.
trying to connect.
Yeah, even that as well.
And they they slip
It's
past
just-
each other, and it's a mess.
Yeah, it's just it's a mess, because there's nothing wrong with people holding on to their sense of manhood and their sense of being a man, because being a man is not inherently a bad thing. It's just how you identify, and being a man is whatever you feel like it is. But masculinity, and specifically toxic masculinity, damages queer relationships in a similar way that it damages straight relationships. As long as it's there, there's a war for power going on. And as long as there's a war for power going on, there's no mutuality. I'm not saying that people have to be the same in a relationship. They just both have to be in a place where they're happy with each other's role, in that relationship. And if you have two people who are applying for the same role but don't want the other to have that role, because that's a big part of toxic masculinity, is taking masculinity away from others. That's why in the media so much of the time you see like the guy being punished by putting him in a dress or something like that, which is not only...
I am sorry, I'm so sick. I am sick and tired of finding men in women's clothing fucking funny. That shit
embarrassing and hilarious.
What?
There's literally nothing funny about it.
What?
Like, think about it. There's nothing funny.
What?
It's because when you do that, you take away the masculinity of someone else and you go, haha, I'm superior, I'm more masculine.
It's also it's also terribly transphobic to trans women, because it just reinforces the idea of a fucking
man in dress
that a trans woman is just a man in a dress, and and because they are just that is hilarious. Look at them trying. Aren't they so funny? Like, fuck off with that shit. It's such an eye roller when that shit is like, oh my god, look, he's wearing it. Have you nah, piss off, fam. Gender performance,
they talked about it in Disclosure, Netflix's new documentary, about the fact that one of the only things ever to really do it right for a bit is Bugs Bunny in Looney Tunes, who puts on a dress and then lives like their best life. And then even after that, when the hunter dude, I always forget his name, finds out that it was actually just Bugs Bunny in a dress, instantly the gay panic defense comes in and the hunter tries to kill Bugs Bunny, and it's because their masculinity feels as if it's been invaded. But in queer relationships, toxic masculinity and the need to be superior to your partner is just as much a problem as in straight relationships, and it just needs to be addressed in a very, very similar and serious way.
Yeah.
They're different situations, and different situations arise from it, but the core problem is still there, which is masculinity is a need to control those who don't want to be controlled.
Or just a need to have control. I don't know... masculinity in female queer spaces or female queer relationships is I can't really speak on how they affect female queer relationships, because I haven't been in one, but my understanding of masculine presenting women within, well, my initial understanding of masculine presenting women in female queer spaces was there's a dom and a sub. Just like in gay men, there's a top and a bottom. Female relationships, there's a top and a bottom, and you fit into one or the other, or you're a butcher, or a femme, or where the fuck are you? And I remember feeling that pressure and to push, to lean into one or the other. You get what I mean? Or to be attracted to one or the other, and not having.
I feel the same thing with being a top or a bottom.
Yeah, and not having. That and I even watched a film about it, the film Pariah, amazing queer film about a black queer woman, so brilliant. And she has a butch female friend, and that butch female friend like takes them to queer spaces and takes them to clubs, but those clubs are very much butch femme, there's no in between. And the girl feels a need to conform to like being masculine presenting, like fully masculine presenting and wearing the right clothes and things, even though she doesn't find it comfortable. And then she meets this girl where she can just be herself around. She could be as masculine presenting or female presenting, or she can just be herself, which is whatever. And there's a whole thing, something happens there. But the beginning of the film, it's about that struggle. And again, it just goes back to this idea that we have to have binaries in order to survive, and we fucking don't. So fucking drop them.
Drop them.
Drop
Drop
them.
them.
Drop them. Yeah. That's all I can really say about masculinity in female spaces. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
We're not attacking you for being a man.
Ugh, whatever.
I'm not.
They'll survive. They'll survive. Trust.
They'll make it.
And these two questions sort of semi go hand in hand. Sorry to lump them together, the people that wrote them in, just because we're running out of time. So the first one, how does your cultures view LGBTQ+, and how do they treat queer people as such? And this one is just queerness and African/Black culture. So I'll start off with queerness and African/Black culture because Marcus is African/Black, so
yes,
he
I
can
am.
speak on that.
So within my my African/Black, I'm just not even going to do the joke.
Yeah, let's not finish that joke.
Can't be asked.
But yeah, queerness in African/Black culture. I'm Caribbean. I'm I'm Caribbean. So I can't really speak on African, but what I've seen from my African friends and stuff, that queerness is a no. Gay is a no. Whether even it's not even like, oh, if you're a lesbian, it's just a phase, cute, whatever. Still a no. That's mostly down to religious beliefs and religious justification. I'm primarily Christian, and
Thanks a lot, guys.
and that has led to the Christian ideals involved in lawmaking. So if you are gay, you will be killed. So I understand that a lot of my African friends, they cannot be open to their parents. They know that there is love in their parents and there is meaning well in their parents, but they can't because for their parents, it's not even a question. It's not because they don't like gay people. It's just because they can't, because then those killings, like we said before, were unjustified. How would that make sense? Why would that person be murdered, hung, set on fire if what they were doing wasn't wrong? So, and then with that comes the gender roles and the idea of being a perfect woman to the perfect man and what that man looks like and shit like that. So I would definitely say, and I would say that is very similar to Caribbean culture and how they see queerness. Luckily, I have very accepting parents that I love a lot, and they had queer people around them, queer family members and queer friends, and who were involved with the drag ball scene, the very small queer community, so they got to engage with those people. But even then, they have an understanding of what it's like to be a queer man rather than a queer woman, because they had lesbian friends, but they were involved with the drag and the performance of it all, and queer women weren't performing in those drag spaces. So back in the day, it was chill to call your lesbian friend a dyke, just as whatever, even though you had no understanding of their experience, or to be a lesbian was to be like ooh, or like dominant. Like there's still like a lack of understanding there, because it was one reduced to one very small space where they had it was reduced to one space, but still in their experience of it with their friends and their family, those people were in danger all the time. They were in danger of being killed, beat up, stolen from, robbed, all of that. And so it's very hard to for me, because of my family and my friends. It's been easier to be black and be queer and be loud about it, but for those people who don't have those family, friends and spaces, it is so difficult for black queer people to exist. it is so difficult. And even trying to announce those things at the same time, people are like, whoa, 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 you're bringing too much of your oppression to the table. I'm gonna have to ask you to pick a struggle. Just pick one. So even that is a lot to deal with, because I am a fully complex, fully realized person. I have a fully complex, realized experience that can't be reduced to this label and that label. So accept my intersections, or don't fuck with me, or don't speak to me. Intersectional feminism, guys, look it up. I forget her name. Oh, I'll link the TED Talk in the bio. That people live with intersections of oppression and privilege, because people are more than one thing. I'm not just a woman. I'm not just a black person. I'm not just a queer person. You know what I mean? So yeah, being Caribbean hasn't sort of, the only way it's really interrupted or had hard stops on my queer journey is the same things that come with just black culture of being assumed that you're heterosexual, being assumed that you've got to marry a good man so you can be wealthy and you can live a good life. And what it means to live a good life is very narrow, because it's defined by Western standards, and to be Western is to be great. So, yeah. How does your culture, Mr. White Man in Little Village, how does your culture view LGBTQ, and how do they treat queer people as such?
Well, you know those Western standards? We made those. We made those
I'm so glad you looked into the camera when you said, was that me?
Yeah, very much a similar situation, except I feel less severe, if that makes sense, in the fact that in Western liberalism there is slightly more, at least, obvious acceptance, you know? I mean...
There's gay people on TV, you know what I mean? Like, there's
exactly,
this idea
there's gay people on
gay.
TV. Yeah, the idea of gay is more present and therefore more accepted by some people, as in this certain standard and this certain kind of like top trumps card of gayness has been accepted, which is something, you know? Like, it's something.
It's something, yeah, absolutely.
But for most of us, it's not what we are. And I'm very thankful for the fact that, unlike other cultures, I am able to say outwardly that I'm a queer person within my own culture and not be deemed a criminal anymore, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That's something. There's an air of acceptance within Western culture and within British culture. It is an illusion. They don't accept us in the way that we accept ourselves, and I don't know if they ever will, but they pretend to, at least, and that's something, you know. And they're never gonna give us a pedestal, but they're not going to stop us too much from putting one up there ourselves, or at least they're going to let some of us through eventually and put one up there ourselves, you know. That's the thing about much of British culture. But there is still the same sense of shame and guilt that comes with Western values and comes with traditional Christian values, you know. Heteronormativity is one of the fundamentals of the culture. Mm-hmm. It's one of the founding fundamentals of this culture. Mm-hmm. And it's not the founding fundamental of all cultures, as we've seen throughout history. But the things that Western culture teaches us, that it is one of the foundings of all cultures. Mm-hmm. That's the thing, we're taught that. And not only that, we're taught that the cultures that we brought it to a lot of the time are responsible for their own. We're responsible for it. Mm-hmm. It's our fault. We're the ones that went through the whole of the world and spread our toxicity, and therefore we're the first ones who also start to get a cure for it, if that makes sense. We
start to backpedal.
We pretend to be liberal, we pretend to be accepting, and eventually we get closer and closer to actually being, where you can have a show like Queer Eye on television. And I kind of clump together British and American culture because they are so similar. But you can have a show like Queer Eye on television, or Queer as Folk in the 90s, although Queer as Folk is fucking awful and horribly homophobic. But for its time, it was progressive. But again, the illusion of progression, you know? We at least give some voice artistically to queer people. And that's the main thing, is it's about the media and it's about entertainment more than anything else. That's where representation comes from, when you're in a world which consumes so much media. And thankfully, we, as British culture, are giving more and more voices to, more and more pedestals to queer voices, especially on like public service broadcasting as well, because public service broadcasting is obliged to represent people, and it doesn't do a good job. But if there's so many outwardly queer people, they're going to give us a tiny bit of something, you know. However, in cultures where so for example, shows like Pure exist and shows like Queer as Folk have existed, and that's something. It's not enough, but it's something. So I'd say that it's a very similar situation, but just less serious.
Definitely less severe. Even. I'm sorry, I was going to say that I was in the National Youth Theatre town hall meeting about being black and being in the performing arts industry. They basically got all the black members together on a Zoom call and said, this is a safe space, speak your mind, let's talk about this, let's talk about what NYT can do. All two of you. It was, no, truly, it was such a good turnout. And someone said something so brilliant. They said something so brilliant. And she said, you know, the phrase, give them an inch and they'll take a mile. And she said, what they do for black people is that they give them an inch so they never take the mile. You know what I mean? And that's what we need to start fucking doing. We need to start taking that mile and not just being happy with our small portion because we've never had this portion, period. You know what I mean? And similar to black queer people, similar to any queer people that are represented on the TV, we've now in the West been given this inch, been given this sprinkling. That's not enough. It's only, like we said, it's only an inch. We need miles on miles on miles. You know what I mean? Let's take that mile. I don't want to be excited for the one film a year that has a queer protagonist. That shouldn't be a fucking, like, event. I don't want to be excited anymore. It should be the norm.
It should just be, every time I go to the cinema, I want one of the screenings to be a queer film.
Statistically, it makes sense, yeah.
Yes. Because think about it. 8 screens. Let's say that one of the screens has a queer film playing. Statistically, for the population,
because queer doesn't just mean gay.
Yes, there's we're not saying gay movies.
You know what I mean?
At this point, yeah, absolutely. And this is in the Western cultures are the ones making these gay movies most of the time.
It's the LGBTQIA plus. We've given you enough.
We get the LG.
No, sorry, we get the G.
The occasional.
We get the G.
We get the G. The L's get to make their own L's, and then show them themselves. And then the T is Eddie Redmayne and Scarlett Johansson in wigs, and that's what you get.
Don't even. Before we finish up, I want to say one more thing about being black and being queer, because it just popped into my mind when you were talking about like queer representation and stuff, and how queer representation isn't as severe in the West than it is in the Africas and Caribbean, and how when we do get black queer representation, it ain't accurate. Most of the time is that black queer people are predators, and I can think about examples of black trans women being portrayed as predators, trying to fool people, or just the most crummy, sort of clumsy, sort of messy sex work or something, or gay black men being predators in prison. Yeah, being predators in prison, or gay butch women also being predators, or I'm reusing the gay because again, you don't even see a black bi representation, because you don't see bi representation, period. gay femme women being presented again as sex workers, as sluts, as whatever. Black queer people, not only are they black, but now they are queer, they are monsters. They are truly monsters that are coming for you and your children, and so you better hide your kids, hide your wife, because we're coming for you.
Hide your baby wife.
What?
White Anglo-Saxon Protestants.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So truly, and that's something that is just, again, reinforced so hard in at the Afro-Caribbean community. So reinforced. Not only do we have the West and the white people saying it, we ourselves are saying it and encouraging it and projecting it onto others, which is so dangerous. It's so dangerous. And we talk a lot about internalized homophobia. There is internalized racism. There is internalized everything under the sun. Because like I said before, the ideals of the West are so narrow that it excludes pretty much everything else.
Mm-hmm. Like, how much of the world's population is white?
I don't know.
It's like a minority, right?
Is it? It must.
Yeah. It's like
find that
white
stat.
people, when you consider the world population, are a minority.
That
for sure.
That is an argument a lot of alt-righters use, fascists use.
Yes.
That the white population is dwindling, and we need to we need to regain power and regain representation, because we'll get into that myth later. But
can we do an episode on alt-right myths?
No, because I don't want to be fucking cut up, bitch.
That's true.
Thanks. But yeah, I think that's all we've got to say. That's all our questions. Sorry if you sent a question in later and we did not catch it. As soon as we started,
you might be a better fan.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah, but okay. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to our Spotify listeners. I've been making so many faces. I'm so sorry if you're on Spotify and you can't see my faces. They were very funny.
One thing we don't say a lot, give us a like and subscribe if you watch. People say that, we don't really, but like do if you like it and you want to see more of it, press the button that makes you see more of it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping everyone is having as lovely a Pride as they can be. I hope everyone is staying as politically active as they have been, if not more. I hope you're all still signing petitions. I hope you're all still going to When It's Safe march. I hope you're all still staying informed, and I'm hoping you're having a lovely, lovely Pride. Pay attention to every time you see a queer person get called out on behaviours that everybody does. Pay attention to the way that you're represented in the media. Pay attention to the way that your fellow queers are represented in the media. Just pay attention and keep paying attention. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah,
we love you all.
We love you guys. We love your listeners. So follow. If you want to see more, honestly, follow, because that will give us any more. If people like what's happening, we'll do it, because we do this in our private time all the time. But it's you guys that want to see it. It's you guys that are saying that. Can I quote this one comment? It's just great conversation. Not to toot my own horn, because they two did it for me. So. Yeah, so follow, because you can follow on Instagram, you can follow on Apple Podcast, subscribe on Apple Podcast, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Instagram, follow on Twitter, even though we don't post on there, whatever. Do all the social medias that we can't be bothered to tell you to do every single day, because it's a lot of work that I don't like doing. So
we're busy making a podcast.
Oh yeah, busy making a podcast.
Did you know that we have a podcast?
I'm making.
And if you like our content, be sure to check out our podcast, Couple of Kooky Kids.
And more stuff is in the works. We hope you enjoyed this episode. This goes out to all my queers. Stay safe. Stay celebratory. Love yourself. You're perfect just the way you are. Everything is just as it should be, just like you. So, peace, love, and I'm so distracted from Marcus' hand flailing right now. For our listeners, you can probably hear his hand jolting back and forth. But we're gonna cut out now. Goodbye.
That's how I wanted to end it.